Hello, good morning, and welcome everyone to today's Africa Construction Trends webinar. It's 10 a.m. on the dot, so we'd like to get started. We expect the session to last about 2 hours, and we hope to have an insightful discussion. My name is Samira Karantara, and I'm an assistant manager in the Financial Advisory Unit in Deloitte, Ghana. On behalf of Deloitte, I'd like to welcome each and every one of you and say thank you for taking the time to join us today. Before we begin, I'd like to take you through some housekeeping rules. For your information, the webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the Deloitte Ghana YouTube page at the end of the session. We have also muted each and every one of you's microphones. During the question and answer session, if you have any questions, kindly raise your hand. We will unmute your microphone and give you the opportunity to speak. During the discussion, however, if you have questions, please use the question and answer chat box at the bottom of your screen. We'll either address the question immediately or save it to the question and answer session where we'll pose it to our participants. At the end of the session, us improve in the future. And now I'd like to hand over to our Financial Services Deputy Leader, Mr. Kwabena Ntrisi, to give us a welcome address. Kwabena.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocols observed. My name is Kwabena Ntrisi, and I'm an assurance partner and also the Deputy Financial Services Leader for Deloitte Ghana. So I bring you warm greetings from the partners and the staff of Deloitte Ghana as we celebrate our 75th anniversary in Ghana. As a firm, we are led by a purpose of making an impact that matters. This purpose defines who we are and enables us to achieve our aspiration of being an undisputed leader in the financial services industry in Ghana, including the real estate and construction sector. So over the past decade, the Africa Construction Trends Report has tracked infrastructure and capital projects activities across Africa with insight into who owns, who funds, and who builds these projects. We are pleased to welcome you to this insightful webinar to discuss the findings of the report and narrow the discussion down here to Ghana. So as the Deputy Financial Services Leader for Deloitte Ghana, I'm excited to welcome all of you to this year's edition of Deloitte's annual Africa Construction and Housing Trends webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to now introduce the host for today's webinar, Yao Apialati. Yao is actually the Deloitte Africa leader for construction and infrastructure projects. So without much ado, I would like to hand over to the host, which is Yao. Yao, are you on the call? Can you hear me clearly? Can you take over from
Good morning.
All right. Thank you very
Yao
much.
Apialati is a partner in the Africa Head of Infrastructure and Capital Projects in Financial Advisory in Deloitte Africa. Yao has over 15 years Big Four accounting firm working experience and been part of and managed several high-profile infrastructure transactions and capital projects. This includes corporate finance advisory services, M&A transactions, financial restructuring, investment appraisal, deal structuring, negotiation support and implementation. Yao has vast experience across sectors such as energy, transportation, water and sanitation, telecommunication and broad infrastructure. Yao has also been involved in public-private partnership, private sector partnership, project financing, structure and contract negotiation for infrastructure projects valued at over $10 billion across Africa, including Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, the Gambia, Botswana, and South Africa. His functional expertise includes infrastructure and capital projects, economic advisory, feasibility studies, deal structuring, and negotiation support. Yao is a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants and the Institute of Chartered Accountants Ghana. He holds a master's degree from the University of Cambridge, UK. Yao is also a lawyer and holds a Bachelor of Laws degree and a qualifying certificate in law from the Ghana School of Law.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, team, and good morning to you all. So, Honorable Minister, Honorable Assensu Boakye, thank you and welcome your team and colleague panelists. And our cherished listeners, viewers, and participants, we thank you very much for taking time off your busy schedule to join this all-important event. This is a Deloitte Africa Thought Leadership event. We've organized similar events across 4 regions. So Southern Africa region, East Africa region, Central Africa, and this is the West Africa edition. Of course, we are privileged in Ghana here to have it as a focus. So you should count it as a privilege to host the West Africa edition of the Africa Construction Trend. As I said, this is a Deloitte Africa Thought Leadership event that we organize every year. And the survey covers several countries in Africa. And it covers a total of about 500 projects. So the 2021 edition that was launched this year, we surveyed about 462 projects with a value of $520 billion. And the survey covers who owns the projects, who funds them, who builds these projects, and the predominant owners from the survey has always been government. And so this leads me to the next section of the event, that if governments are the predominant owners of projects or infrastructure projects across Africa, then we cannot have this event without having someone from government telling us about all the good policies, the strategies that they are putting to support infrastructure projects, not only in Ghana, but even if you support Ghanaian contractors, developers, and so on, they get empowered to reach out to Africa and take advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. So I have the privilege to introduce the Honorable Assensu Boakye. We would have his profile played shortly.
Honorable Francis Assensu Boakye is Ghana's Minister for Works and Housing and also a Member of Parliament for the Bantama constituency in the Ashanti region of Ghana. He is a former Deputy Chief of Staff and Political Assistant to His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana. Prior to this, he had for many years served as a political assistant to Nana Akufo-Addo as presidential candidate for the New Patriotic Party. He is a development planning, project management, and policy specialist with over 22 years of wide-ranging professional experience in his field. Prior to becoming a key member of staff at the presidency, he held positions at the Ministry of Employment and Social Welfare, Global Media Alliance, Delta Acquisitions and Development, USA, Michigan House of Representatives, USA, Ghana Free Zones Board, and Ghana Investment Promotion Center.
Thank you very much, Honorable. The floor is yours. Honorable, please unmute.
Yeah, before the Honorable comes in, we have a question in the question and answer chat box. Luquenza, forgive me if I didn't pronounce your name right, is asking if there will be a WhatsApp or Telegram group for the attendance of the webinar.
Okay, so I think participants are allowed to share their details, their email addresses. You're happy to share the report and all other information related to this. So you may not necessarily create a WhatsApp group, but once you have your email address, you'll be contacted. And at the end of this event, you will launch the report. So get your iPhones ready to use the barcode to scan, and the report will be shared on your phones as well. So you have the opportunity to get a copy of the report as you get along. Thank you very much, Honorable. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Yao. And good morning to all the distinguished participants. I'm happy to join you this morning on this virtual platform to deliberate on the housing and construction industry of our continent. First of all, I would like to thank Deloitte Ghana for this invitation to be part of this important webinar, and also to take this opportunity to congratulate Deloitte Ghana for your 75th anniversary of your work in Ghana. This is indeed commendable, given the quality of work that you've performed regarding the development of our country and continent. The theme for this event, which is Africa Construction and Housing Trends, a focus on Ghana, is a thoughtful one, considering that home ownership remains a challenge, especially in urban areas, despite many interventions of government. The increasing cost of building materials, lack of innovative building technology, inadequate infrastructure, rising construction costs, and prevalence of slums are major challenges to our effort to make home ownership accessible to our people on the continent. Therefore, a robust public infrastructure remains one of the critical components upon which every economy is built. The government of President Akufo-Addo, since assuming office in 2017, has made significant strides in this regard. The provision of good road networks, railway systems to aid transportation, and indeed airports and other infrastructure are being built. Construction of sea defense walls to protect coastal areas from incidents of tidal waves, and also to boost the economies in these coastal communities. Drainage systems to curb incidents of flooding, among others, across the length and breadth of the country. As a government, we remain committed to delivering better infrastructure systems, thereby creating increased opportunities for the good people of Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, as a result, government has made it a priority to ensure significant investment in the construction sector, and that the sector is able to respond adequately to increasing demands for construction and infrastructure development. One of the such initiatives is the provision of decent, safe, quality, affordable housing that are accessible and affordable to the good people of Ghana. The prevailing strategy of government regarding affordable housing is to secure land banks and provide the requisite infrastructure services to these land banks, designated as affordable housing enclaves, to leverage private sector investment for mass affordable housing construction. While doing same, government will strengthen the provision of the requisite tax incentives and exemptions available in our laws to attract private sector capital. The need for a robust legislative and institutional framework for every sector cannot be overemphasized. That is why the government of President Akufo-Addo championed the enactment of the Real Estate Agency Act, 2020 Act 1047, which has led to the establishment of the Real Estate Agency Council to regulate real estate agency practice in Ghana. Furthermore, it is an undeniable fact that there is an increasing demand for the development of high-rise and compact properties towards maximizing limited land space, especially within the prime areas of the cities. This has called for the need to consider the implications of shared ownership of common areas. Therefore, government is working assiduously to pass the condominium bill, which seeks to regulate the use of common area in real estate development. Ladies and gentlemen, more importantly, we cannot overemphasize the role of private sector in the overall development of the construction subsector and the economy at large. It has a critical role to play in deepening the financial sector, drive microeconomic growth, create job opportunities, and develop the real estate industry. To this end, ladies and gentlemen, there is the need for a deeper collaboration between government and the private sector. And as a ministry, we shall continue to encourage and create more conducive environment for such collaborations and partnerships to thrive. It is my fervent hope that we use this opportunity to discuss the current pertaining issues in the sector and how our professionals in the construction industry can assist with innovative measures and ideas to help create a robust, sustainable housing sector for our people. Once again, I would like to thank you, give a big thank to Deloitte Ghana for this invitation to provide insights into the real estate and construction sector of Ghana. I wish you all present a very fruitful and a successful event. Thank you, and God bless us all.
Thank you very much, Honorable. We very much appreciate your presence and making time for this event. I think I captured quite some very important points from your speech or your presentation, which were quite elaborated in our survey in Ghana. So there were two concerns for real estate players. One of them were taxes and tariffs. And I think it's something that they highlighted in the survey, that they are concerned about taxes and tariffs. I know government has done quite done something to support the sector in terms of taxes and tax exemptions. Should these players expect more?
Well, I mean, certainly, and that is why I'm excited about this webinar and the quality of professionals gathered. And I think at the end of the day, whatever advice you provide will be considered thoroughly, and we will also be in the position to push it at the corridors of government. At the end of the day, we are looking for initiatives that will help government provide the kind of mass affordable housing that Ghanaians need.
Thank you very much. And I think your point about condominium bill is also very instructive, because a lot of the listeners have also sent questions around the affordable housing. That it turns out that some of them, given their income, the average worker, teachers, nurses, and all, may not be able to afford the affordable housing projects that are put up. So is there a plan to make them a lot more affordable? So these are the two critical issues: taxes and tariffs and affordability of houses. The rest, I guess, you gather and then send them to you, to your office, to respond. So maybe if you have a word or two on making affordable houses really affordable to the average Ghanaian.
Yes, government is very much aware of the issue of affordability. And we recognize, in fact, we have surveys that show that about 60% of Ghanaians can only access housing with government support. Government recognizes this, and that is why our current strategy, we seek to provide free land and infrastructure on the land. The idea is that with this government intervention, we will contribute to subsidizing affordable housing by about 40%, close to 40%, so that when we give these site and service land to the private sector to come in. They only come and build the structure. And well, the tax incentives, their cost of construction would have reduced drastically, which will in turn make it affordable for the people. And we are targeting workers like teachers, nurses, public servants, and those who are within that bracket who can afford. Certainly, it's not everybody who can purchase a house. I mean, even in the United States, where you have a very robust real estate sector, it's not everybody who can. And government is also working on revising the rent bill, who's been in place for over close to 60 years. And some of us believe that it has outlived its usefulness with the effects of urbanization and population growth, so that those who also cannot purchase a house and who have to resort to renting will also have some relief in there. So we are currently working on the revision of the Rent Act, which will go a long way to address some of the inherent constraints in the rental housing market in Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Honorable Minister will stay just for a short period during this event, but he's got a team that will stay with us to the end. So, in the event that you have any further questions on policy issues, government incentives, and so on, send them through. You will have a team respond to your questions and issues for clarification. So, at this juncture, we will just zoom straight to the presentation on our survey, annual housing and construction trend. Like I said, this is a Deloitte Thought Leadership event that we organize every year. And this is the 2021 publication. So if you can see my screen, give me a wave, and then I'll proceed, or just let me know. Okay, great. So thank you very much. So our Africa construction trend covered about 5 regions across Africa. So East Africa, Southern Africa, West Africa, North Africa, and Central Africa. And then we've got a section on Ghana specific. So we also undertook some Ghana specific survey. And the report or the summary there is also very interesting, which I guess a lot of the players who are on this call will love to see as well. So in summary, just to summarize this, as I said, the report covers who owns these projects, who funds them, who builds the projects, and the conclusion from our report is that government predominantly owns these projects. But the question is, who has been funding them across the region? And it's very interesting how you see its churn or changes across the region. And based on the summary, West Africa recorded the highest number of projects on the continent with about 153 projects, followed by Southern Africa with about 106 projects. East Africa came third, 102 projects. West Africa registered about $172 billion value of projects. And then Southern Africa and Northern Africa recorded 147 and 132 billion respectively. So in West Africa, as will be of interest to you, who are the major players. So 2 West African countries reflect in the top 5 countries by number of the projects. So Nigeria had the highest number of projects under construction, 55 projects. And I'm sure Honorable Minister will be very interested that Ghana came second to Nigeria in West Africa with 47 projects. Egypt recorded the highest value of projects with $108 billion. Nigeria came second in terms of value of projects with just about $100 billion of projects. So I think there are a lot of activities going on in Ghana in the construction sector, and we think this report is just timely, and I'm sure players will perfectly understand, especially knowing what is happening in the sector. All across Africa, based on another survey that we did, we realized that there are significant infrastructure gaps in 3 main sectors. 1 is transport, 2 is real estate, and 3 is energy sector. So these 3 sectors are the key areas that we have infrastructure gap. And so if you look at the dynamics across, you notice that in terms of the number of projects delivered, there are a lot of projects in the transport sector across Africa of about 197. This was followed by the energy and power sector, about 88 of them. And then the third is the real estate sector of 85, and then followed by water and then other infrastructure. So you realize the top 3 are transport, energy and power, and real estate sectors. Now, in terms of value of projects, this is where it gets interesting. Real estate sector contributed the highest value of more than half of the value of projects surveyed, about $232 billion, followed by the transport sector of 121 billion, and then energy sector of 98. So even though there are lots of projects being undertaken in the transport sector, in terms of value, the real estate sector taking a lot, which puts our conversation around housing in context. Now, you can see projects by sector, number delivered, we already have them. So you can see the chart clearly demonstrates that in terms of number, we have transport, followed by energy and the real estate sector. But in terms of value of projects, real estate sector seems to be the one with the highest value of projects, followed by transport and then energy sector. Now, who owns, who funds and builds these projects? Now, let's look at who owns these projects. You can see from my left, government, like I said, predominantly owns these projects. And government policies, initiatives are very important, covering ownership of these projects. Then you have consortiums, private, domestic, EU countries, other Asian countries, and the EU countries, these projects around EXIM-funded facilities are those that dominate. Then followed by UK. So the last on that side is China. Then you have UK, US, Nigeria, Australia, Canada, and then international DFIs. So development finance institutions like the IFCs and the like. Then who funds this project? Across Africa, governments is predominant, followed by consortiums. Third is China, private, domestic, African DFIs, international DFIs, and other Asian countries. So in the previous report, China was way at the bottom in terms of funding. Now China has moved to third place after government and consortium. Then in terms of who builds these projects, so see the trajectory of China, which is highlighted. So ownership, funding, and building. So development or building of this project, China dominates across Africa, followed by private, domestic, consortium, EU countries, other Asian, and then all the other countries that we've mentioned. So this has been the trend in the last few years, but you can see that West Africa dominates. And over the last 5 years, you can see a significant jump. So our numbers were not as great, but I guess post-COVID period, West Africa has started performing significantly well. And it's attributable to activities in Nigeria and Ghana, as previously mentioned. So let's look at the regions, how they played out. So in terms of region, East Africa, we have Burundi, Comoros, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Seychelles, Somalia, Tanzania, and Uganda. So in 2021, in terms of projects, 102 projects. In terms of value of projects across the East Africa region, 60.6 billion. And that accounted for about 10.6% or 11.6% of total value of projects across Africa. So relative to the African performance, not as great, but of course, in terms of value, there are some significant value there. Which sectors? look at the top three: energy, transport, and real estate. So these are the three key sectors in East Africa. Then same story as in terms of who funds, who owns, and who builds these projects. So you can see the trend. In terms of ownership, there is no Chinese ownership in East Africa. But in terms of funding, China is fourth. And in terms of building, moves straight to the top as Chinese firms or entities building in East Africa. The countries covered, I'm sure you can see the projects that are going on in East Africa. As you know, given their natural resources, lots of projects in hydro, lots of projects in hydro dam and hydro plants. So you can see a lot of them listed there. And then you've got some port projects, like I said. So once you have hydro, you see inland port, seaport, and stuff like that. So that's predominantly what the areas that we saw a lot of activity in East Africa. Let's go to Southern Africa. So Southern Africa covered countries including Angola, Botswana, Lesotho, Madagascar, Malawi, Mauritius, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Swaziland, Zambia, 2.9% of African projects delivered over the period of survey or covered under the survey. In terms of value, it's about $150 billion value, making approximately 28% of total value of projects surveyed across Africa. Sectors, same: energy, transport, real estate, didn't change much. In terms of funding or ownership, funding and building, so you see that government is still predominant there, followed by private sector, EU countries, consortium, US, international DFIs, and so on. In terms of who funds, in Southern Africa, government. Now China has moved to second, whereas in East Africa, China was third. In Southern African region, China is second. And then in terms of building, the private domestic still dominates in South Africa, followed by China. So in East Africa, China is number one in building, and even across Africa, China is significant, but in Southern Africa, private domestic still dominates. And you can see lots of coal projects actually undertaken in Southern Africa. And if you follow the stories in Southern Africa, there's some kind of load shedding. So there's a lot of activity in the power sector, and we're expecting a lot more hydro plants, coal plants, and so on and so forth. Now, West Africa, where you and I find ourselves. West Africa includes Benin, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, and Togo. West Africa undertook 153 projects over the period of the survey, accounting for 33% of number of projects in Africa. The value of these projects was in total $172.8 billion, also accounted for 33.2%. So a third in terms of value and also a third in terms of number of projects delivered. That is quite impressive. And I guess such an impressive performance in West Africa, and Ghana was part of the game as well. Now, transport become top, followed by energy and real estate sector. I'm sure it's clear, and that's the same trend in other African countries. Now, let's look at the trend. Who owns this project in West Africa? Government, number one. Consortium, private domestic, other Asian, and the Nigerian. So obviously, there's some Nigerian dominance as well, where Nigerian or indigenous Nigerians are the ones undertaking the projects. Who funds these projects? Government, number one. Consortium, number two, and China. In terms of who builds these projects, so in West Africa, the trend is not as we have in East Africa and Central Africa, which will come to. The trend in West Africa is still that private domestic is still dominant in terms of building infrastructure projects. So that's a very interesting scenario there, that China, although dominant across Africa. In West Africa and in Southern Africa, the private domestic still continue to be the strongest in terms of building infrastructure projects. You see some projects highlighted there. We just arranged them in order of value and significant projects. We've got Togo and Ghana sharing the Sugar area 1. And then we've got Dangote Refinery. We have the gas projects in Nigeria. We have the Eco Atlantic in Nigeria. And you can see Ada Estuary tidal wave power plant as well. These are all, were all mentioned. North Africa. So North Africa, in terms of projects, 86 of them. In terms of value of projects, $132 billion, making 25%, and number of projects making 18%. North Africa has got energy displacing transport as opposed to or what you see in other areas. So North Africa has got some major solar, especially, and other forms of renewable energy delivered, and they have significant value, followed by transport and then real estate. In North Africa, I'm sure for the obvious reason of obvious fact, Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, South Sudan, Sudan, Tunisia, Western Sahara. Good. Who owns this project? Obviously, governments, and like a popular thing in Africa. Who funds these projects? In North Africa, still government. So government is number one in terms of funding the project in North Africa, followed by the private domestic. So China doesn't seem to play much in North Africa. They are actually somewhere in the 6th or 7th in terms of funding. And in building, China is actually fifth. So this is an outlier to see that you see in North Africa, a lot of the construction of development is done by the private domestic consortium, other Asian countries, EU countries before China. Interesting projects as we have here. I will not go too much detail. Okay, great. And then we have Central Africa, covering countries like Central African Republic, Cameroon, Chad, DRC, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Congo, Brazzaville, and then Sao Tome and Principe, making about 3.3% of 15 projects delivered in that region. Not much or significant. In terms of value, about 7.4 billion, just under 2% of total projects delivered. Now, who owns them? Who funds them? So on and so forth. Funding, government, consortium, and France. So you will notice that I guess you can see the list of countries here and why France is actually part of government or part of the list of ownership. Also on funding, who funds them? African DFIs. And obviously, if you are involved in projects delivered in French countries, you know that Agence Française de Développement and the Proparco and the rest are significant players. China is in there, but fifth. In terms of development or building, China comes in significantly in French-speaking Central Africa, to say, or predominantly French-speaking. And I guess, like I said, most of the projects around energy, transport, and real estate. Ghana, country specific. So when it comes to Ghana, we undertook just a high-level survey. Some projects delivered, so we spoke to some players in the market. So you would have small niche type projects delivered, just under $5 million, between 5 to 10 million, nothing happens. And then gradually from 10 million all the way to about $50 million, you see some projects there. And then over 200 million, which I guess hits the $1 billion that we discussed previously. There are some significant players there. So you start from those who play in the small market, and then those who play the very high market, with few players in the middle. So from under 5 million, all the way you hit 2 billion, 200 million, and then billions of dollars. That's how, or these are the people we contacted. Now, in terms of the players, what they do, a lot of them are EPC contractors, financiers or credit providers. Then we have suppliers. So financiers, credit providers, suppliers, those who provide support services, and then others. Now we ask them the simple question. What are some of the challenges you face in delivering infrastructure projects in Ghana? And you can see the order. Number one, taxes and tariffs, which is the question I rightly put to the minister. Developers and players in the construction and housing sector are very much concerned about taxes and tariffs in the sector. And one, sometimes uncertainty around the taxes, and every now and then changes in the taxes as well. So these are some of the concerns they raise. Secondly is bureaucracy. So in delivering or getting them to deliver on projects, lots of bureaucracy. Before the project takes off, it will take several months to go through the bureaucratic process. The third is financing options. And I guess the survey itself clearly shows you who have been funding the project. And if you can see or you monitor those who have been funding the project, the ease with which you get the funding actually drives the speed with which you're able to deliver this project. So others, for countries or certain territories that easily fund projects and provide funding or make funding available, you can easily deliver those projects. Then we've got issues around legal and regulatory constraints. And I think this is closely related to tariffs and taxes. And then they have technical services and equipment. Some of them actually struggle to get technical services and equipment. And then lack of skilled labor. So in essence, this is our report for 2021. We want to believe that in subsequent years, you will participate in these projects. You send out questions or questionnaires for you to respond. We'll be happy to have you respond. So in terms of summary, I have it here, that these are the key tipping points. Our report covered funding, ownership, building of projects. The conclusion was that governments continue to own these projects. So across the African region, government continue to own these projects. And in terms of number of projects, we surveyed about 462 projects across Africa, valued at about $521 billion. West Africa registered 172 billion. So in terms of value, West Africa was predominant, followed by Southern Africa and Northern Africa. Transport sector dominates with 197 projects delivered, followed by energy and power sector, and then real estate sector follows. In terms of value, real estate sector displaces the transport sector as in terms of value, about $232 billion of projects delivered in 2021. African government continue to own the largest share, and China plays a significant role in delivery of infrastructure projects. At the end of this program or event, we will give you the opportunity to get access to our report. So thank you very much. Continue to share your question. We will go to the next stage of our discussion, which is going to be a panel discussion. We shall introduce our panelists. Feel free to share your questions in the chat box. They will be read, they will be put to the panelists. Some will be addressed to the minister. We are happy to acknowledge your questions. So we have some representatives of governments on this webinar. So Chief Director of the Ministry, Mr. Solomon Asawala, and then we also have the Director of Housing at the Ministry, Dr. Teresa Tufuo. You are welcome. And then we have Principal Architect at the Ministry, Mr. Chris Abbey. So thank you very much, honorable representatives of the ministry. We very much appreciate your time on this webinar. It means a lot to us. And as you can see, Ghana is a significant player, not only in West Africa, but even across Africa. This report mentions Ghana. And so we are very much privileged to have high-profile people, representative of government on this webinar. So we'll go in this order. Cynthia Opuni will be introduced, followed by Kojo Adukufo, Olga Adam, and then Reverend Elvin Lulu Lakai will be introduced. So Listeners and participants, we shall now have panelists introduced. Thank you.
Cynthia has over 20 years international experience in sales management and business development acquired across a range of sectors including real estate. Having managed significant sales portfolio and teams within established multinational companies in the UK, Cynthia relocated to Ghana to take on the sales and marketing director role at Afarewa Estates Limited and is now the managing director of the company. Under her leadership, the business successfully implemented a sales and marketing strategy which culminated in increased revenues from properties sold. Cynthia also serves on the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association Executive Council as Vice President. Cynthia is an alumni of Achimota Secondary School and has an LLB degree attained from the University of Hull. She also holds an MBA in marketing from the University of Leicester, UK.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. You are welcome. Kindly turn on your video. Let's see you, Cynthia. Okay, so we shall now have the second panelist. Okay, hi, Cynthia, you are welcome. Yes, good.
Kojo has worked extensively in the financial services industry. Before co-founding Ghana Home Loans, he worked in different operational and leadership capacities. His main areas of professional experience include brokerage services, investment banking, and corporate finance. Having accumulated years of varied exposure both in local and international institutions, Kojo brings to the table a high acumen of professional financial management expertise. He worked in SDC Brokerage Services, Citigroup London, Citibank Lagos Nigeria, and the sub-region operations of KPMG across West Africa, United Kingdom, Southeast Asia, and Australia.
Thank you very much. Kojo, you are welcome. There is someone I've known and observed from afar. Okay, hi. You're welcome.
Hi. Thank you very much.
Okay, so shall we have the second or the third?
Holger Adam is an architect, urban planner, and real estate developer. Holger is currently head of real estate development of Clifton Homes, Ghana, and responsible for the development pipeline of one of the most dynamic real estate developers in Ghana. As Ghana country head for Rendeva, he successfully established Apollonia City, an ambitious master plan satellite city of Accra. Before coming to Ghana, Holger was responsible for signature urban developments in Europe and Nigeria, notably Echo Energy Estate in Echo Atlantic City in Lagos. He was instrumental in creating the Certificate for Sustainable Urban Neighborhoods for the German Sustainable Building Council, and is chairman of the management boards of the IREBS Foundation for African Real Estate Research. He is a member of the Ghana Institute of Planners and the Ghana Institute of Architects.
Thank you very much, Holger. You are welcome. Holger, unmute. You can turn on your video. Okay. Okay, so we shall go to the next person.
Elvin Yunulakai is a life and corporate coach. He has about 20 years of diversified industry experience in technology, engineering, real estate, and construction. He is currently the managing director of Elrano Projects and Consults, a consultancy firm which provides services to various industries, including the consumer, financial services, real estate, oil and gas, manufacturing, transport, and equipment industry. He is a business strategist with focus on customer experience management delivery, project management, and particularly has a striking marketing and sales acumen. He is currently pioneering the national real estate sector revolution in partnership with the Graphic Communication Group under the auspices of the Ministry of Works and Housing, Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ministry of Finance, Ghana Standards Board, Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, and their related industry stakeholders.
Thank you. Reverend, you are welcome. Reverend Lakai, you can turn on your video. Let's see you. Okay, great. Okay, so Holga, you are welcome once again. Good. So we'll go straight to the panel discussions, have some questions available, even from participants as well. So Holga, if you permit me to start with you, this is an Africa construction survey. And you've noticed that the trend and the dynamics are not the same across the various regions. So from your experience in Ghana, what are some of the things, maybe 3 things that Ghana can do to make our real estate and construction sector attractive? So all these billions that the report represented, Ghana will feature significantly. So Ghana in West Africa is strong, but maybe in Africa, we are mentioned. But if you really want to feature significantly, what are some of the things that you can do to improve that sector and make it a lot more attractive to other players?
Good morning, y'all. Thank you very much for that very relevant question, and good morning to Honorable, to all the other panelists and participants in this webinar. Great honor to be here. Regarding the attractiveness of Ghana as a real estate location, I must say, first and foremost, Ghana is attractive. If you look at the amount of activity that is in the real estate segment of the market, if you consider that Ghana features second to Nigeria, that Ghana is an attractive destination for funding and is an attractive location to carry out ambitious real estate projects. But of course, it has challenges, like everywhere in the world. There's no location that is entirely risk-free or is entirely open for additional projects. But these challenges need to be balanced with opportunities. And I must say, in Ghana, I feel that the balance is about right. But of course, if you want to increase the dynamic of the real estate industry, if you want to increase the dynamic of the market, there are a number of areas that I think needs to be looked at closer. And one, I'm now looking at, and here I'm looking beyond government projects, because I believe that government is a very distinct owner and funder of projects that has more to do with the let's say political seasons and legislative periods than necessarily market fundamentals. But if you look beyond government funded and owned projects, there are a couple of areas that consistently come up. One of them is the access to land. So I find it very, very encouraging if Honorable explains to us that that the government of Ghana is funding and is supporting affordable housing projects by creating land banks that are accessible to developers that are operating in that field. But of course, there are other areas of the real estate market, commercial, industrial, upper-end residential, that needs to have a conducive business environment. And there, the areas of registration of land, of the rule of law around land are very, very relevant and have a big impact on the dynamic of the market. That is one. The other is access to financing. What you realize is that banks are very, very reluctant to extend construction loans. And if they do so, then they do it at rates that make it very difficult to operate competitively, and that drive up the cost of real estate development for the contractor, for the developer, and then in the end also for the end user. And that is a big challenge. But once we are able to come to single-digit interest rates, like in the global north had been prevalent now for the last decade. You will see how the real estate sector takes off. So let me just leave it in these two areas: access to land, rule of law in when it comes to land, and access to financing, which I feel will make a big impact on the viability of real estate projects in Ghana.
Thank you very much, Olga. So maybe just to alert government reps on this webinar, we have quite a number of questions for you. So the first one, I'm not asking you to answer now, but you can think through, and I'll come back to you. On the Ghana Housing Authority, when are they expected to be operational? Or if they are operational, have they started? So that's one question for you, government reps on the call. And then there's also a question on Rent Act. I have another cap, but I won't respond to that question. I'll put it to you. So the Rent Act, when is it supposed to be reviewed? Has it been reviewed? That's the question. So government reps, these two questions, I'll come back to you. There's also a question about our methodology. Maybe I'll speak to that after this session and how we went about the survey. So Olga, thank you for your input. That takes me straight to the next person, Kojo Adukufor, on financing. I think, as you saw in the survey, financing is just a critical thing for most players in the market. So, Kojo, how are you making the market a lot more attractive rather than these individuals waiting and relying on other support? Our financial institutions in Ghana making it attractive for players in the sector to get financing and to have easy access to financing for their projects. Is Kojo on?
Okay. Good morning. Yeah, I hope you can. Right. Good morning to and all the panelists and the participants on this call. And I also like to congratulate Deloitte on coming out with this survey. I mean, a lot of us spent a lot of time and energy and resources to deliver this. Well done. The question is, how are banks making the process?
Yeah, Kojo is breaking up a little bit. So we'll give you time to reposition yourself, and then you'll come back to you. So you'll give Kojo time to reposition himself, and then you come back. So you go to the next person. So I guess Cynthia is in order. So Cynthia, what practical funding solutions are available to be explored by the average middle income family to get access to financing for home purchase? Maybe from your experience, everybody is saying, look, I'd rather go and start small. They take 20 years, 30 years to build. Are there cheaper ways to go about it? Drive from Accra to Koforidua to Kumasi, so many uncompleted buildings. Is this something you want to continue? Or what advice do you have for people who want to get houses? How would they access funding to get it?
Good morning, Yao. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful. Good morning to you. Good morning to the Honorable Minister and his team, my fellow panelists, and to all the listeners on this program. Before I delve into it, I want to say I enjoyed the Minister's remarks, and there's a lot of comments in there that we need to work on. Your presentation was also really good, educational, really insightful. And I think we should actually pay attention to the trends and the presence of China and probably consider putting Mandarin onto our school curriculum so we can communicate very clearly in future. Right. And now to your question of the practical funding solutions. Unfortunately, there has been no magic wand. And I agree with what Olga also said in his comments about access to finance, the interest rates, and the challenges that these present to the middle income family who want to get access to funding. So we do have access to mortgage facilities, which we encourage people who want to access finance to explore. And again, sometimes they are put off by the interest rates there. So we need to really probe further to see how we can make funding accessible to them at realistic interest rates so that they are not put off and try to start small and take the aforementioned 20 to 30 years to build. The other source as well is private other financial institutions who may not be your traditional banks, who might, not be so rigorous in their due diligence and looking for how their clients qualify for finance. So they are also another avenue that the clients tend to explore. Unfortunately, we are a little bit limited in other kind of funding. So we always get interest from potential purchasers who would like to afford the houses, but find that they cannot actually save enough to ever afford one. So you have people who come, they have land in the villages they want to sell and use that as finance to put towards their houses. And then you have people who try to club with other siblings or, their spouses. So you have joint income purchases. So people are trying to think outside the box to see how they can access funding to purchase their houses. On occasion, you have certain institutions who also provide some sort of an employer assistance. So or, if it's a Provident Fund, for example, that the employer might be able to release to get the employees to access finance. So on occasion as well, you find that developers provide a flexible payment plans so that the purchaser may not have to cough up everything as soon as they express an interest to buy. So they may spread the purchase amount over a period of time. And this again on its own provides challenges because the burden of the cost of that finance falls to someone, and it's probably going to be split between the purchaser and the developer so that they can actually offload the house. So there are very interesting options that we need to continue to work on. In the minister's comments, you will find that he mentioned the plan to provide a 40% subsidy to allow public sector workers to buy. So we need to probe that further to look at this topical interest of affordable housing to see that even if we look at the cost of the house, will they be able to afford the house even after the application of the 40% subsidy? So I think there's a lot of work we need to do as developers and with the government to make sure that all these wonderful ideas are actually practical and achievable. So there's a lot of work to do there, and I think I'll leave it there for the moment.
Thank you, Cynthia. That's very, very, very good and very insightful submission. So I guess the same thing. Even beyond housing, there are other infrastructure projects that you have to do what we call viability assessment. Without some form of government support, those projects are not bankable. The same thing for housing. To be affordable, there has to be some, by certain Ghanaians, there has to be some form of government support. So it's quite instructive that we get in this 40%. But like you said, you have to find out how this is going to be operationalized to ensure that as many Ghanaians get access. So maybe I'll go to Kojo. We will come to Kojo, but I'll direct the questions that we were sent through the Rent Act and then the Ghana Housing Authority. If the Honorable Minister's team can respond. One, the Rent Act, I know it's such a debatable thing. They're injecting somebody from your house. Some people are being ejected, and all manner of stories. And then the Ghana Housing Authority. So the team for Ministry of Housing, Teresa, Chris, and maybe Honorable, if you want to respond to that. Okay, Honorable, if you're talking, you're on mute. Yes.
Yeah, can I read out the questions so that they are okay?
You're on mute.
So the first one is, An anonymous attendee would like to know if the Ghana Housing Authority has started operations, and if it hasn't, when is it intending to start?
Okay. So, Honorable, please, you're on mute if you want to respond.
Okay, this is Chris here.
Chris, okay, great.
Yeah. So the process is that we sent a cabinet memo for policy approval to cabinet, which we received the cabinet approval. We sent it to AG for the drafting of the bill to be done, which is currently with them. When we got the bill, we did a stakeholder engagement at the KNU with the law faculty. We've received the report and we submitted it to the law faculty, to the Attorney General for the drafting to be completed. Once we receive the drafting, we'll send it again to cabinet for approval and subsequently send it to Parliament for consideration. So that is where we are now. It is not operationalized yet. We are in the process of setting it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. That's very much appreciated. So maybe Kojo, if you can hear.
Yeah, I think let me add this, that as part of the processes for the Ghana Housing Authority bill, yeah, we had a colloquium because that was an opportunity for us to have a stakeholder consultation before finalizing it. And it was finalized. The bill was finalized. This was after the policy approval had been given. The draft was done. After the draft was done, we had a colloquium at the Kumasi University of Science and Tech. This was a collaboration between this ministry and the Faculty of Law of KNUST. As we speak now, the views in the colloquium have been incorporated into a new draft, into the Ghana Housing Authority bill, which is currently being considered by the Attorney General's Department. Now, what we do is that as soon as the bill has been cleared or reviewed and finalized by the Attorney General and transmitted to this ministry, we would thereupon resubmit or submit the bill to Cabinet for consideration and approval. And so that is where we are. If the bill is approved by Cabinet, it gives us opportunity to submit it to Parliament. So briefly, this is where we are with the Ghana Housing Authority bill.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Kojo, we'll come to you. So access to financing for construction projects, the question that I earlier put to you, yeah.
Well, thanks, Yao, and apologies for the earlier difficulties. I don't know if you can hear me better this time.
Yes,
you can.
Loud and
Excellent, thanks. Yeah, so access to construction finances is always a sensitive one. I think financial institutions, by our very nature, are always looking for opportunity to put money to work. So there's no reason why a bank will come across a project that is bankable, shows great. You see banks apprehensive to give money to construction. It's because of what's happened over a period of time. And I think both Cynthia and Holger have spoken to this quite extensively. So it's a question of the inherent risks in the sector and what happens when things don't go according to plan, how you can quickly resolve the situation. And this speaks to not just construction finance, but right across the financial services. You're trying to recover your loan or whatever outlays you give through the legal process. It speaks to the difficulties you sometimes encounter going through the courts, title administration, and all the other reasons why the bank might decide to frankly put resources into government pay than to expose itself. I said that there are banks that specialize in this. I mean, First National, for example, we've put our name out there. the multiple individuals looking for construction finance to build their homes. We haven't quite gotten to the stage of full-scale construction finance for big, but we do fund acquisition of homes for individuals, and there are banks that also specialize, and not just banks, private equity players that specialize in construction finance. But it's an area that fortunes have been made and lost. A lot of issues. I mean, if you look at if you do a case study, you must really know what you're doing to step in that space, and that's why it might appear as if banks aren't interested. But to the extent that a bank can identify the risk and mitigate it, I don't see any reason why such a bank won't take on the project.
Yeah, so in Ghana here, we do not have credit scores on people and all. So you can see someone who has had all manner of issues with some commercial banks in a different sector. Then he wants to get to construction. How do you even assess the credit worthiness of these individuals? And then the second one is interest rate that is so high. How do you help these contractors, given that they also have other issues to manage, taxes and so on?
So we do have a credit reference agency administration. I mean, if you want to find out somebody's credit in some parts of the world, but you can definitely get the person's credit history to the extent that thanks to us for a loan. We run a credit check to see how they've behaved in the past. So that does exist. It is not perfect. It's still work in progress, but it does exist. I think everybody should know that. And every so often, people did 5, 6, 10 years ago has been captured in some database somewhere, and they have to kind of resolve it before we go ahead. So that service does exist. What you need to take into account, given the inadequacies I referred to earlier, is that as an institution, you need to go above and beyond what the credit reference agency tells you about the individual, right? So you need to do a bit of digging around to get a better picture. The credit reference alone doesn't give you the full picture. So that's one. And that translates to the second question around interest rates. Well, interest rates, I'm sure we all agree that whatever interest rate you're getting from a bank references the main interest rates of the land, and that tends to be government rates. Government is seen as credit borrower client number one, the best possible risk you can ever get in the land, right? So if you look at where government in all its glory is borrowing at, that sets a benchmark for what you as an operator in that country should expect to borrow at. So unfortunately, that's where we find ourselves. So whether you're borrowing in local currency or foreign currency, wherever your government is borrowing at, it's a very good indicator of the best rate you can ever hope to get. Rates currently are approaching late 20s, early 30s. So if you come to a bank to borrow and government is borrowing at 29, 30%, you should expect it to be something more than that. And that's just the reality of the situation. And we hope that we get out of this as quickly as possible so that rates return to the single-digit regime that Holger was asking for earlier. But otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to get rates any better than what is offered to government, given the resources and the reserves government has, right? So government definitely gets the best rate, and everybody gets government plus. Right? You have to come up with a very good argument to get anything better than what is offered to government. So that's where we are, and that's just the reality of the situation.
Okay, so Kojo, we'll come back to you. There's a question for you on down payment. Before people get some funding, they are required to make some down payment. Sometimes very difficult for them to get that down payment. They've found a nice house they want to buy, and you have to make a 10% down payment. So we'll come back to you on that, on how is there a plan at some point you take that off completely so it doesn't become burdensome for people to access mortgages in Ghana, or you find a way to help those individuals really access without this being onerous for them. So I'll come back to you on that. So I'll go to Reverend. So Reverend Elvin Lakai, thanks for your patience. What affordable and eco-friendly trends are being explored globally, and how can they be adapted to suit the Ghanaian market? I think now the conversation is around ESG, sustainability. I drive across some of the Sahel parts of this country, or some of these forest zones, and you see 2 or 3 houses in the middle of a forest that you probably want or you love for us to preserve. What are some of the eco-friendly initiatives or sustainable initiatives that you know about that Ghanaians should be thinking about putting up our houses and even in acquisition of land?
Thank you very much, Yao, and everyone, the panelists alike. We want to say a very big thank you to the participants and to the minister for his speech. I think I'm sure the minister knew we're coming to ask some of the questions he had to present on, so he touched on it way ahead of time. Yeah, we are grateful. We're also grateful for the authorities' work, the real estate authorities' work. I'm sure they will address a lot of the issues we are having to deal with. Quickly to the question on the table, I think one key area we sometimes forget, or in as much as construction and infrastructure is more a business to government, business to business, the consumer plays a very major role, especially when it comes towards the housing end. That is the consumer or the consumption bit of it. And one of the big challenges we always need to deal with is taste and preferences. So yes, we may be looking at affordability and quality and all that, but the issue about taste and preference comes up. That brings us to consumer behavior as well. So yes, we want to be looking at the items and the new trends of material, but we need to be careful about whether this is also matching up with the taste and preference of Ghanaians as such. The UN makes us to understand that affordability is within the range of $10,000. Up until today, it was around 50, 60,000 Ghana. Now with the increase in the dollar rate, we are hitting almost 100,000 Ghana cedis. The question is, will a normal Ghanaian be comfortable, an average Ghanaian be comfortable with materials and items used to produce a house in that category, in that price range? Okay, other countries are doing it and it's working. Brazil, South Africa, they are doing quite a lot of innovative and creative works in terms of local materials being used. And I think that is where the creativity edge of the Ghanaian developer comes in, the architectural firms and the rest comes to play. So yes, there are a lot of materials we can look at, but we cannot do that in isolation with the consumer's want or needs. That said, we have some interesting trends coming up, like this issue about bamboo. I was quite impressed about it. At Greda, the Greda platform, there's a lot of discussions that have gone on. I was surprised that you could use bamboo to actually build and replace iron rods, surprisingly. We have a lot of clay. Unfortunately, we have a lot of challenge in its processing and management, which is also available. Even the Landcrete, the blocking system, the brick and mortar system have gone through a number of renovations and improvements. Currently, a number of real estate companies are going for plaster boards for internal divisions alike. Now, some other new technology coming up includes the containerized housing, steel housing, and it's coming faster. This whole concern about kiosks and containers all around is being remodernized. Apart from the shipping container, the 20 foot being used, people are coming up with new and creative ideas because it's matching the budget to get houses below the $10,000 or 100,000 Ghana mark. The other recent one that actually is also coming up has to do with the flexi and plastic banner setup. This is in the olden days. If you look at when we had the nomadic movement, people moving from one place to the other, they used tents to live in. Now we are having tents being used for event centers and the rest. But the truth is, if you look at the lifespan of these things, they can last as far as you can get about 10 years out of them. And like you're saying, if you have the forest regions and the rest where you don't, the green canopy in there covers the direct sunshine, you could easily have some of these tents playing out in there. The key thing in there, obviously, security. But if we're looking at affordability, i.e. Trends in consumer behavior, I think we can repackage some of these new technologies coming up, or better to revisit some of the old setups. I won't say we go back to our caves like they did in the old times, but cutting out, going back and revisiting some old systems. If we learned about this Petra story where people carved out houses out of caves and using stones. So look at the very old houses in Ghana that were built by just ordinary stones, the castles and the rest. It has a way of also cutting down costs. So I believe the way forward is to do a lot more research and development and making the old meet the new in terms of architectural designs upcoming in the face of consumer behavior and trends that our clients will want to buy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alvin. So just to finish off with you in this session, we see people building in places that they are not supposed to build. Waterways, pathways, middle of roads. And I mean, from your engagement with players in the sector, what practical solutions can be offered? Because you see the rains have started and we're going to hear stories.
So first and foremost, this is a tricky one because developers and professionals typically are supposed to come together, and the bottom line for a developer or any business is profit. So you realize that yes, there are rules and government regulations and all that, but it looks like we seem to be competing with, like you're saying, private developers. Instead of we coming together, I think recently the FMB's, one of their last reports made us understand that less than 20% of development is being done by developers, and individuals are doing almost about 80%. I'm sure Kojo could speak to that. What that means is that developers can come together and rather compete with the unprofessional build group. Everybody believes they can build, but the best way around it for us, I believe, is for all developers and professionals to come together and then present to the general public professional services at someone will say better prices, obviously, because most people build, they don't even record how much cost is going into it. They build over 10 years, 20 years. That's how come we're having so many properties unbuilt or uncompleted. So I think the way forward is for real estate developers and professionals to come together. So like Greda is doing, the Chamber of Construction is doing, GREPA and Guy and the rest are doing, the real estate authority is also coming in. That is the way forward, where the professionals come together and say, look, come to us. We can provide end-to-end services with lower cost and better value to the market. I think that's the best way around it. If not, we can't combat this menace ongoing.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Elvin. So Olga, I come back to you. So the minister mentioned that there's a program or a policy coming up, very interesting, to support affordable housing. So we see historically private developers have not ventured into this affordable housing. I mean, what are the challenges and what do you think can be done to make that area a lot more attractive? Because you see in other sectors, there are some form of JV, PPPs going on. But in the affordable housing sector, it seems the developers are not particularly interested. Any issues? Please unmute.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for that question. Very relevant again. What you're describing, I think, is a Ghanaian particularity, and I think is only applying to this time, because it will be overcome, like it has been overcome in other countries. If you look to Southern Africa, you have a lot of affordable housing initiatives successful. There has been made great progress in housing the people with less income or less formal income. Even if you just look to Nigeria, you have a large affordable housing developments that are successfully delivering housing for certain income groups. And I do think that these are lessons that can be applied here, and that will be able to change the housing landscape in Ghana over the short term. We don't even need to wait for the middle term. But if you look, what are the common denominators for these successful projects? It is on the side of the developer to be able to harness economies of scale, to produce housing at large numbers, so that they don't, because like Alvin was saying, private developers are in the game for profit, yeah. But the profit doesn't need to be made all on one luxury villa, on 15 luxury apartments. It can be made on 100 or 1,000 affordable homes. Yeah, so you have the quantity, and then you just have a smaller margin overall. But that requires that you are able to sell 1,000 housing units at a fast pace, which on the other side requires that there is offtake. And this is just where Kojo came in, and Cynthia already made a number of very relevant points. Currently, it is very difficult for people to access mortgage, especially when they are not with government, especially if they are not in any scheme by their employer that facilitates housing loans. So I think it may not sound perfectly logical to the layman, but to address housing, you need to address financing, and that is the financing of demand on the one side, and then the other requirements to build housing at scale. With the current technology, still we need to build mid to high density but low rise. That means we need large parcels of land in adequate locations. Yeah, I don't want to open a can of worms and enter into the question of whether Zaklemi ever was aimed to be affordable or not. But I think it is one of the projects that we all know, and that we all know not to be successful. And the challenge is, one of the challenges certainly is the location of that kind of project. If you are so far away from places of work, from places of schooling, of any other infrastructure that a family needs, then it is very, very difficult to place such a project on the market, and the developer will automatically face challenges and eventually fail to do a successful project. But like I was saying, it has been done successfully in other countries where the financing side was addressed. I found the initiative by Ghana Home Loans at the time very, very interesting. Kojo, really big kudos to your team to bring people from the informal sector into the financing sphere, or how should I describe it? Essentially, offering long-term loans also to people that have no formal income and standards and a recurring paycheck, which allows them eventually also to access mortgages. I think that's a very, very important aspect. And then the refinancing of the mortgage banks through a national mortgage institution that allows the mortgage lenders to offload the quantity of their mortgages to be able to extend fresh mortgages to the market. It's a number of different initiatives that needs to be addressed, and that will make the difference. Yeah, but I'm not trying to run away from your question, Joe. When you ask why are developers not jumping on board?
Yes,
we are more than ready to jump on board once we know there is a conducive environment, once we know that there is a market to take up a product that we are able to produce, or that we are able to offer at rates that make sense to a private developer.
okay, great, thank you very much. So Kojo, I'm back to you. I'm sure the financing issue has emerged again. So first, the down payment before individuals or entities can access some form of funding for housing or some other construction. And then I'll come back to you on the macroeconomic conditions, particularly the forex evolution and how people who hold mortgages in USD can help mitigate that risk. So first on the down payment.
Right. So the down payment is the contribution that the potential home buyer makes to the transaction. So if you're buying a house for 10,000 cedis, for example, we would ordinarily expect you to put in 2,000, and then we come in with the 8,000. So 20-80 split, right? So that's the standard. For individuals who don't have the down payment, there's a product that allows them to borrow 100% of what they need. So the down payment isn't always, or shouldn't always be a stumbling block. We have a product which allows you to borrow 100%. But then to borrow the 100%, your income must be sufficient to support the repayments. So in the one instance, that it's a solution, but in another, you need to bottom line is this: you shouldn't borrow any more than you can comfortably repay. That's the rule. Whether you're an individual or a company, you shouldn't borrow more than you can comfortably repay, because you always end up in trouble. So if you don't have the down payment and you don't qualify for the 100% facility, then you might want to relook at your target property and ask the question: can you come down a couple of notches on the property ladder, get something smaller, get something slightly more affordable, and then when your income goes up, you trade up the ladder.
Okay, and so yeah, the depreciation of the local currency and dollar-denominated mortgages.
So I mean, that's one that always comes up every 4 to 8 years, as whenever the currency slides against the dollar, and we've been here quite a few times in the past. I mean, there isn't an easy answer. There isn't an easy answer. I mean, we've always offered local currency facilities and dollar-denominated facilities. The reality is that the local currency interest rates have been stubbornly high. I mean, compared to where you borrow with the dollar. So if you want to borrow in local currency, we can give you a local currency facility, but you get a variable rate, and a rate that historically has been, even in the best of times, in the late teens into early 20s, sometimes mid 20s, right? Compared to the dollar, which is normally around 13%. So it's really a choice for the borrower. We don't really impose a solution on them. You look at the options and you choose which one you want. And it gets even better because you can swap. We've had people who started with the dollar facility and along the way have changed to cedi. And then others who started with the cedi and have realized that the repayments on a monthly basis are quite considerable. So I've gone to look for the dollar option. But it's really a choice for the borrower. You need to know your income sources.
Hello, Kojo?
There's an $5 element in there, right? So it depends on the borrower. Is the point I'm trying to make? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's a question that kept coming through, and I think you've also addressed the issue about 100% down payment. Someone asked, he works in the public sector. Would you be willing to give 100% loan to the person without?
Absolutely, and we have. I mean, we've done a lot of public sector employees, because you see, there's this notion that the whole mortgage product is for some high net worth millionaires. It couldn't be further from the truth. We've done public sector workers, we've done police, we've done prison wardens, we've done nurses, we've done the whole spectrum of public sector workers. And this is not even on the special government scheme. This is regular workers coming through the door to take facilities. And a lot of them have successfully paid off and moved on. It really comes down to the property they are looking for. And this goes back to the earlier conversation around affordable housing. It's always, the question is always what's affordable. But as long as you look at your income and you go for something in your income range, we are there to provide a financing solution. And as I said, we've done it over and over again for a wide spectrum of applicants. And for some of them, they've looked at their income and decided that they probably don't earn enough to buy property, but they earn enough to buy a serviced plot of land. So we can give them money to buy that land, and then give them money to build over time. That's another product we have. So to the extent that the individual is realistic about their income, realistic about their expectations,
Okay, could you just break in a bit?
Where the conversation.
Okay, thank you, Kojo. So Cynthia, back to you. What is Greda doing? I mean, we've mentioned all the challenges in the sector. You would have even some of them, the players in the sector, the contractors are all part of the problem, putting up buildings the wrong way or in waterways and all. What is Greda doing to bring sanity in the real estate sector in Ghana?
Well, Greda has existed for virtually 35 years now. So what we do is we exist as an association to encourage our members to practice good building practices and to deliver good quality units on legally acquired land, which when you check from maybe TDC or other areas where it's been subjected to town and country principles, you shouldn't be building on illegal areas which will provide problems for clients. So we provide a platform where we educate our members as to the expectation of clients, to make sure that we try and sensitize fellow members as to what the expectations are. Because at the end of the day, we exist to provide credibility as well. So when you have local clients looking to build, they tend to approach Greda to find out whether they are buying from established developers who follow the rules, as it were. So we are actually prioritizing legality of transactions to make sure that we can provide confidence in the marketplace for people to, try and purchase houses in areas where they will not have any problems. So that's what we're trying to do, to provide legality, to make sure that our fellow developers will communicate with clients and encourage clients openly to also carry due diligence, do multiple searches to make sure that they're investing in areas where it's, for the want of a better word, clean and safe to actually reside in.
Okay, so we have just about 10 minutes to bring this session to an end. So we invite participants who want to ask questions directly, put your question directly to the panelists. I've got my colleague Samira also on the call. Samira, if you have some questions, please come in, ask the questions from the log that we have, so you can address it to whoever the person wanted to address. But participants, feel free to raise your hand. You can ask, we give you the opportunity to ask questions.
Okay, thank you, yeah. So Lisa Dan would like to know what affordable housing means and the steps that the government plans to take to enable affordable housing be given to Ghanaians and the estimated timeline for this.
Okay, so Honorable and his team, maybe I'll give you opportunity to think through that, and then I'll give Regina the opportunity to also ask a question. So Regina, please unmute and ask the question.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, thank you. My question relates to the pricing. Kojo mentioned that those who choose to go for the dollar-based pricing facility have cheaper interest rates as against those who go for the local currency. And I want to understand what is the reasoning behind it. If your market, your key market, are people who earn largely in cities, why are they rather being charged higher interest rates for mortgages or for housing? I just want to understand what goes into that thinking. Thank you.
Okay, Kojo, I'll give you the opportunity to respond quickly, and then you can go through that. Yeah.
Right. Thanks for the question. So essentially, Regina, the way it works is every currency comes with its interest rate regime, right? So if you look at the cedi, you think of the currency and you think of the interest rates and you look at the interest rates that come with the cedi, they tend to be higher. Borrow in cedis, you get the cedi interest rate. When you borrow in dollars, you get the dollar interest rate. We don't create it. It's just the nature of currencies. So every currency has its benchmark interest rates. So when you come to us on cedis, we give you the cedi interest rates. If you want dollars, we give you the dollar interest rate. The point I was trying to make was that historically, if you go back, well, as far back as you choose to go, you'll see that the cedi rates have been higher and definitely more volatile than the dollar rates. The dollar rate also has its own issues, which is exchange rates, right? So if you borrow in dollars, you get a lower interest rate, but whenever the cedi moves, you pay more in terms of cedi equivalent of the dollar amount. But again, these are all kind of rules of the game that we don't create. We just apply. So, but the important thing is to at least know that you have a choice. You have a choice to borrow in cedis or in FX, and then you see how you go. But it's also important to know that hundreds and thousands of people have successfully done this to acquire homes and moved on. So that shouldn't be the reason why.
Okay, thank you very much, Kojo. And so, government, Honorable Access.
Yeah, sorry. Can there's a follow-up question on the back of Kojo's answer.
Okay.
So Mr. Samuelzo would like to know if, for example, a worker earns about 2,000 cedis as a take-home pay, can the individual secure a one-bedroom studio apartment with a mortgage?
Yeah, with your permission, can I take that question offline?
Okay.
I don't know where that property is, and I don't know how much it's being sold for. Yeah, so if you send me his details, we can engage.
Yeah, Zoe, you can reach out. We can engage. We give you the opportunity to engage Kojo. So as we go back to the question on affordable housing. So Samira, the question was on affordable housing.
Yes, on affordable housing. What are the steps and the timelines? Okay. And what is affordable housing?
Okay, so Honorable team, anyone to help us respond?
Yeah, Chris.
Okay, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm inviting Chris to respond. But yeah, just a minute. If he doesn't, I'll come in.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I think let me answer. Let me start and then I defer to Chris because he's the coordinator for affordable housing. Yes.
If I just join.
Okay, good. Chris, then then you go ahead. And if there's
didn't
anything.
get the question. I'm sorry if the question
Okay,
comes.
we'll repeat for you. Samira, please repeat for Chris.
Okay, so somebody would like to know what is considered affordable housing and what are the timelines that you are expecting based off of the minister's speech?
Okay, thank you very much. The UN habitat definition and the housing policy definition. Affordable housing is that type of housing that you have to spend 30% of your income, your household income. If you spend more than 30% of your household income on housing, be it rental or for outright purchase, it is not termed affordable housing. So basically, because you have to be able to spend that money on housing and be able to also take care of your health, other needs such as health, education, and other stuff. So for affordable housing to be affordable for a household, you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your household income on housing. So that's the definition, the standard definition or the universal definition of affordable housing. So my husband and wife shouldn't spend more than 30%. So,
yeah, Chris, go ahead. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can hear you now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So for the timelines, when we started this new program with the framework that we are trying to use, we needed to go through all the satisfy all the statutory requirements. And per the project of this nature, you have to conduct your feasibility studies, and they have a template that the PFM Act requires us to go through. We've done all those feasibility studies. We've made a presentation to the Ministry of Finance. Currently, we are awaiting their approval for us to commence these works. In any case, the framework, as the minister suggested or stated or indicated, is to provide for land and infrastructure. And in so doing, we will reduce the cost of the housing unit by 40%. That is what we've prepared with all the detailed drawings and designs, with all the legal, environmental impact, the traffic impact, and all those assessments has been done. Now, once we get the approval from the Ministry of Finance, we go ahead with the selection of the developers and those who will be also constructing the infrastructure with networks. We are on course. We have 2 sites available now, one in Accra and one in Kumasi. So once we get the approvals from the Ministry of Finance, we'll just kickstart the project.
Yeah. So Chris, just a quick one for you. So there was an issue about some of these affordable housing being far away from available schools, hospitals, and others that the average homeowner want to have easy access. Are they so far somewhere in the bush, or they are close to the city center?
No, so what this program seeks to do is rather repurpose government land. So land that are sited within where infrastructure networks already exist is what we are looking at. Because I mean, the fact of the matter is, once you go to the outskirts of the city, then it means you are also going to increase or spend more in terms of infrastructure. I mean, water supply, electricity supply, I mean, sewage systems and everything. But once you are able to identify a site within the city center, then you can take advantage of existing infrastructure and thereby reducing the cost of infrastructure and ultimately reducing the cost of the housing.
Thank you very much.
So that actually occasioned us preparing these feasibility studies. So once you conduct a detailed feasibility study, then you know where you sit in terms of your infrastructure cost and how it impacts on the overall cost of the building eventually.
Thank you, Chris. That's very helpful. So I'll give opportunity to Swale. So Swale.
Yes, thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes,
good morning, rather. Yes, and thanks a lot for the elaborate presentation by the various panelists. Really, my contribution or my suggestion is that if you look at the housing industry in terms of the cost of materials, it's one of the main reasons why the housing cost goes up. But if you look in Tamale, I currently work at Wale Wale. In Tamale PC, if you look at the private sector housing development, it's very expensive in the sense that material, everybody has a price. The cost of materials in Tamale is very expensive. So people sometimes come to Wale Wale. Cost of materials in Wale Wale is cheaper than Tamale. So all this affects the housing development, because if I'm, for instance, I'm coming to construct a house in Tamale and I have to buy expensive materials in Tamale as against what's the name, Wale Wale. So maybe in terms of the material, was the pricing too, we need to look at it so that it will be uniform, so that people will not be, anyone cannot go and buy his material and what price the way he wants. It should be stable price among all those who sell materials, those building materials in the housing industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I guess, okay, so we will take feedback after this session or after the program is over. So you give it opportunities to submit your feedback. I'll give the last opportunity to Architect Freeman. So Architect Freeman, please.
Okay.
Speak. Yes.
Thank you, Yao. I think this discussion is a very important one, and I also want to thank the Minister for his confirmation of the actions they are taking so far in terms of achieving affordability projects and all that. As an architect, I've come terms with the real terms affordability. Affordability is a relative term in relation to your resources that are available to you. And as a country, this is what we need to take as a serious matter. And housing is a very important need of human race. And as part of clothing and shelter, housing comes next. And any effort towards achieving the maximum impact of housing in every country is an effort in the right direction. As an architect, I have had the opportunity to research into affordable housing and energy efficiency. And in all the research, it was clear that the bulk of the cost goes into the servicing of lands, providing transportation systems, internet connectivity, education, and it all ends up at planning. When we plan well, we'll plan a settlement. We don't have settlement planning as a country. We don't have a policy that looks at settlement planning. And if we are looking at how easily accessible housing will be, that will lead to affordability. If government is coming in, like our Honorable Minister said earlier, that they are going to institute policies and acts that will enable us to reduce cost of housing by 40%, I want to say that yes, government plays a key role in achievement of affordability. Number one, by taking land banks. When you take land banks in the name of government, it ensures, gives security to the end user who is coming to take those lands from developers. Because once government takes the land, I think all matters relating to legalities and fear for litigation and all is eliminated. At the end of the day, clients end up litigating over properties and all, spending huge sum of their percentage of capital at the courts there. So it's a holistic approach. And one of the key areas that we also have to notice that as built environment professionals, we need to accept that fact that we have a responsibility in providing housing and as such affordable housing. Design plays a key role in achieving affordability. Some people, without studying, they copy plans, they copy designs from elsewhere, and they want to build the cheap way. There's nothing like cheap construction. There is nothing like cheap construction. It may as well say you are going to buy cheap car. Cheap car will have a particular lifespan. And you want real affordability is how maintenance cost and everything is factored in the long span or the life cycle span of a project. If you build cheaply today and you lose it in the next 10 years, that is not affordability. That is high cost to you, because that moment, maybe you may not be able to have the energy to sustain, the key word to sustain or to maintain. That is also another aspect of affordability we also need to look at. My colleague from North made mention of cost of materials. And cost of material plays a key role, but then government policies also come in that. If at the port level, we import cement and other things, and we can encourage producers, okay, manufacturers to produce our building materials as a subsidized cost and this thing, it will also go a long way. And the location of the project, Temale there, most of the materials come from Accra, Tema. Transportation costs, most of the time the roads are not more travel and all that. And these are costs that are transferred back to the end consumer. So it is a chain of activity, affordability. The government is playing its role. The professionals alike in the built environment must play their role. All stakeholders, business owners must play their role, and financiers must play the role. So it's all involved. We have to be involved. If we come and accept that, okay, pricing of material shouldn't go beyond a certain profit margin because we all want to obtain certain objective, that should be the way. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I wish you all well.
Thank you, architects. Thank you. Okay, so I think I will gather all questions that have been submitted, and then you address them to the panelists. You will have them respond to you in due course. So I think there was issue about methodology or how we got about this survey. So our survey has a cutoff date of 1st June every year. So projects that are broken ground from 1st June every year are included in the particular year's survey. And in terms of institutions or individuals or companies you contact, we have the African DFIs, your usual African Development Bank of South Africa. Then you see consortiums. So 2 or more construction companies, we reach out to them, government departments within the African continent. Then we have international DFIs, we have JICA, USAID, IMF, and all the development finance institutions. Then you have private domestic firms. So you notice that usually in Northern Africa, we have a lot of these private domestic firms. Then we have other sources that we use. So you participating in this survey or this program, you can be sent some questionnaire to answer. And then once you respond and your project falls in the category that we are selecting, as you can see, it's billions of dollars. We include in the survey and we get additional information from you. So that's just on the survey. So thank you very much, all participants, all those who submitted questions. We very much appreciate, and also the panelists. We will give you the opportunity to get access to the report. So on this occasion, we launched our 2021 Construction and Housing Trends Report, or construction report, the Deloitte construction report. Hopefully next year, we will give you the opportunity to participate in another section like this, and we will discuss a lot more. Ghana should feature more, and Ghana should be the top, at least starting from West Africa. If it's not the number of projects delivered, the value of project delivered, and all the participants that we have spoken to, the developers, the financiers, if we're all playing our part, and most importantly, the number one stakeholder, governments, are all playing their part. We will be number one. So thank you, and see you some other time. Feel free to send through questions. You have them answered, and also you give me the opportunity to give us feedback on this event. So thank you for your time and have a good day. Feel free to scan, get a copy of the report. So.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Kojo Adukufo. Thank you, Holger. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Reverend Elvin Lakai. Thank you, Honorable Minister and the team from Ministry of Works and Housing. So Chief Director, Mr. Solomon Aswala, Director for Housing, Dr. Teresa Tufo, and then Chris Abe, Principal Architect. Very instructive and insightful responses to our question, particularly on affordable housing. We can't wait to partake in the affordable housing scheme. So thank you, team, and thank you, panelists. Thank you, participants. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, everyone. Before you exit the webinar,
thank you, everyone.
Kindly give us feedback in the chat box. We have a link that you can scan to give us feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, they know the problem. Charlie. They know the problem. You come and talk.